How one British word will ruin your American accent. I'm really curious as to what word this could be because, I mean, if you've got a strong native American accent, even if the word sounds really British, I would imagine you would just say it with an American accent, if you know what I mean. But maybe I'm not, because I don't know which word this is. Maybe when I hear it, I'll be like, oh, he's right.
This is a clip from my most viewed video I uploaded last year, nearly of all time as well. Try to see if you can hear what exactly is going on with my accent, as well as one of the listening only sections that focuses more on listening comprehension.
Focuses, yeah. Focuses or comprehension? It's probably focuses.
That focuses more on listening comprehension. Did you catch that? Because I didn't really. To me, that just sounds normal, like that's my voice. But I got this one comment on the video with hundreds of likes on it that said, I have nothing productive to add except that the 2 seconds of British accent around 403 really tickled my brain. I got really excited when I got this comment, like, oh, did I randomly put on a British accent? How did I not catch that in the edit? That's fun.
Because yeah, an American would say focuses, rather than focuses. Like the O, the British O, yeah.
But then I listened to it. Focuses more on list. Let's play that again. Focuses more on listening. I guess if I'm trying to hyper-analyze my accent, maybe the R was a bit soft, like more, but to my ears, I don't really hear it. But hundreds of people thumbed up this comment, so there must be something there, unless I'm just a moron. My name is Evan Ettinger, and after living in the UK for over 12 years, my accent is all sorts of broken, and nothing exemplifies this better than one simple word.
I thought it was the focuses that sounded more British, but the more also sounds very British when he says it, to be fair.
How do you pronounce this word? Yeah, it's almost a trick question. It depends on the context. Because I've lived in both the US and the UK, I've somehow managed to get myself into a position where I'm wrong on both sides of the pond. Let me explain. In the US, you would call this a cell phone. This is because it is a phone that connects through cell towers. These days, though, the term cell phone does feel a bit dated, as iPhone, smartphone, or just phone feels like a better default. But every time I visit the States, I still hear the term cell phone pop up every once in a while. In the UK, they're not called cell phones, which makes sense because they also don't connect to cell towers either. I actually found that out for this video. They're called phone masts here. Brilliant, like a ship. They're called mobile phones because, well, they're phones you can use while mobile. But I know there's already some very angry Brits in my comment section.
But to be fair, like these days, we don't even really call them mobile phones. We just say phone, you know. Where's your phone? Like, because nobody has like a corded phone anymore. Like, you know, one of those phones that's attached to a cord and you hear the doo-doo. Nobody uses that anymore.
Quick to point out, correctly so, that they're not called mobile phones. They're called mobile phones. Mobile phone. It's your mobile number, it's your mobile phone. I know. This is how I managed to be wrong in both countries. So after living here for so long, there are certain words, for better or worse, that have forced their way into my vernacular. But while the words have come across, the pronunciation has not. So after hearing the word mobile so many times over here, my brain started defaulting to using mobile phone over cell phone. But because I've kept the American pronunciation, which sounds better in my natural way of speech, it now just sounds wrong. If I visit the States and slip up and say, oh, what's your mobile? Well, I now come off incredibly foreign. The word mobile for a cell phone is very much not used in the US by any popular metric. And over here, well, that's so off from how it's actually pronounced that, again, it just sounds wrong. We're gonna be putting a pin in that word for later, as I'm not done with it quite yet. There is another weird pronunciation I want to talk about later, but one of the British words I use more than any other is quid. And I've gotten more than enough comments over the years, both on YouTube and in person, that the word quid in an American accent just feels wrong. I guess I get it, but like, that's just how I speak. And quid is
quid is a very English word. I can't think of any scenario where an American would use it in America. Quid. Do you guys ever, any Americans watching this, have you ever used the word quid for anything other than like money? Like, does it mean anything in America?
A great word, so like, that's just how I'm gonna say it. Imagine if every British word I added to my vocabulary I pronounced closer to the way they do it here. That would be weirder, right? Hello, sir, can I please borrow 5 quid? I ran out of data on my mobile. Now it's titanium, not aluminium. This is difficult. Switching between the accents like that really does my head in. But I honestly don't mind it that much, as my accent, the way I speak, and the words that I use are representative of my entire life so far. I got a few comments from Canadians on my video last month on nutrition labels in the US and the UK, surprised that I call Kraft mac and cheese Kraft dinner, as they thought, what, only Canadians call it that. Well, I think you'd be right, but I'd learned that that's what Canadians called it like over a decade ago, and then I started calling it craft dinner too because I thought the name sounded much better. I think it's fun. I do that with a lot of words, even ones that aren't in English. I love the way the German word schade sounds so much that I use it regularly even in English conversation. Partner drops her ice cream, schade. Friend can't make it to my party, schade. It sounds better than shame or what a pity, so I use that even if I'm not even pronouncing it the right way at the right time. When I first moved to the UK, one thing I found odd was that some friends of mine would put on a completely different voice when they made YouTube videos. The UK as a culture places a lot of stock on how you pronounce things because the people here intrinsically link how you sound to your social class.
It's insane. I do think with time it's going to decrease, but for sure, for some reason, if you talk with, like, I remember, so I was born in Hackney, moved to Essex when I was 11. And in Essex, they talk like this, do you know what I mean? Like with a Cockney accent, right, mate? And I got my first job at a bank in the mortgage arrears department. And they actually coached us to like drop the accent a little bit so that we sounded more professional over the phone, which is insane. Like, who cares how you sound as long as you can do the job? So yeah, they actually wanted us to kind of lessen how Cockney we sounded over the phone. Mad.
The tiniest, minute differences in how you pronounce things can get you relentlessly bullied in school for sounding either too posh, upper class, or even too chavvy, too lower class, or just different. There's always some sort of inherent judgment being made, and it's not something I really want to be a part of necessarily. But by having a completely foreign accent, I managed to avoid this judgment for the most part, with Brits probably defaulting after hearing my voice just thinking, he's just some bloody Yank, which, yeah, fair enough. But back to the story of my friend who made videos. She felt embarrassed by her Essex accent as it placed her—
This is insane. This is literally, what I was talking about.
—in a category. She experienced judgment because of her accent. So when she made videos, she tried to present herself as more of a BBC sounding voice, a more standard British television presenter-y voice.
This is literally what they coached me out of at that job.
So that way she was elevated, I suppose. And I have another friend who tried changing her chavvy accent to a more posh one around the age of 18. And I know many similar stories to this. I'm sure that most Brits in my audience can relate to this in some way. But one of the reasons that I love London so much is that it is such an international city. Like where I'm from, it's a big mixture of people from all over the place. So sounding different is actually quite difficult. Different to what? We all sound pretty different. Where I grew up in the States, yes, we had our own regional twang, and you can definitely hear it come out stronger in certain words I say, like coffee or dog or dawn, and especially in the video.
Cup of coffee, hey Joey? I love that. I love that super strong, like New York, I think it's from, accent.
That I've uploaded from New Jersey.
No, I've seen the scramble.
No, the mustn't bust.
Yeah, I'd never seen that. I was very surprised myself. I think it's actually a new event to the Sound Kind of Fair. After I moved out, they were like, why don't we have rodeo for children? Put kids on a sheep.
You see, I'm going to sound way more American and way more Jersey here when I'm in the thick of it. That's just how my brain works. My accent shifts a bit depending on who I'm with, and I'm sure that's similar for you. Having lived in the UK for only 3 years, I had a friend in California bully me saying I was putting on a little accent to pretend I was more British than I really was, and I found that such a weird comment because from my perspective, I was just speaking normally. I'd also had comments on my YouTube videos saying, stop putting on that awful attempt at a British accent, which just felt so strange because for the most part, I'm not? That's my accent. It's all over the place and all sorts of broken. Yes, I also got comments on my video with Lawrence saying neither of our accents have changed at all, which is bizarre. So I have people saying, you sound like you're putting on a weird British accent. And then I have others saying, you sound the same. And obviously when I put on more stronger enunciated voices like that, I do default to some strange carnal New Jersey accent. I don't know where it comes from. I feel—
Any of you guys who moved to a different state where your accent isn't how the other people sound, have you noticed that your accent has started changing, or you kind of change it on purpose to fit in? Have you noticed that, or do you sound exactly how you sounded, back in your original state? Any Americans watching this, or Canadians, or anywhere, to be fair.
I feel like my internal dialogue is very much the same as I sound here, but stop me if this is something that you've also experienced. I remember when I had never left the country of the USA before, I remember watching lots of YouTube videos, and at the time, there was like 2 or 3 British YouTubers that were really, really popular, and I watched their videos like all the time. I found them amazing, and because I was watching so many British YouTubers all of a sudden, I started dreaming in a weird British accent, what
Wow.
my brain thought of as a British accent, which was pretty much just these 2 or 3 different YouTubers. And then sometimes I had thoughts which came in a British accent. And
No
that's so
way.
strange because I don't have that now. I think it was
Yeah.
just an overexposure in a short amount of time of this specific type of accent when I was like, I don't know, 18 or so. And my brain was like, is that how we're gonna sound now? No. But currently, I feel like my internal dialogue is very much the same as how I sound now. American, but with a hint of British inflection on certain words that also are mostly used in England. You know, and I do find it interesting that as much as I've talked about how the British friends of mine were putting on different accents as a way to affect people's perception of themselves, I realize I sort of do that too, just badly, as my London accent is just mine, aka weird, and lasts all of 5 seconds before the American side of my brain kicks in to take back control. Throw the tea in the harbor. That was not a bad pun. In fact, I do have another really interesting clip to show you. When I was filming in Chiswick the other day for my video on Berlin and London's public transport, I'll link that above, I got interrupted while I was filming a particularly bad take. Listen how quickly I switched to what my brain perceives as my standard London accent to blend in a bit, before giving up on that completely. And then eventually the government finally gives in, pays the people what they deserve, and then the process repeats the next week, next year. Oh, hi.
Can I be nosy and ask what you're doing?
I'm just filming a video.
Sorry.
I'm just filming a video.
A video about the London Underground. It's weird watching that clip back because it's like not something that I'm trying to do,
It just
but my brain
happens.
automatically triggers that sometimes when I'm being interacted with by someone that I perceive like, oh, am I gonna be in trouble? When I first moved here, I would put on the most American version of my accent possible, so that way I would get people feeling, I guess, a bit more bad for me, like, oh, he's just American, he doesn't know, like, oh, I'm sorry, officer, I didn't know that. Whereas now, I try and blend in a bit more, but by trying to do so without actually trying, it comes off as even more strange. What makes that clip even weirder is these people had clearly been listening to me speak normally for like...
Yeah, and then they heard his like attempt at a British accent. Oh man, pretty funny.
quite a bit to the camera. And then when I turn to them, I'm like, oh, I'm just filming a video. Yeah, okay. I do have certain trigger words that cause me to stumble into my London accent, but these are usually just on public transport or like at a retail shop or something. Like, excuse me, can you please move down the carriage? Think of my weird accent as like a Venn diagram, and I'm in this like middle area, but I also consider this weird London-y accent-y type thing also my accent, as well as my ridiculously extra Jersey accent.
It's crazy how, like, you know, even though English and American people speak the same language, the accent is just so different, you know? Like, I wonder what made Americans have that American sounding accent, you know? Like, I wonder how long it took from the British people, you know, the British people that landed in America, like how many generations did it take for that English accent to like disappear and the American accent to appear?
And then somewhere in the middle is this hodgepodge in which I exist. But let's say you're like, oh yeah, that London accent you're doing is really bad. Sounds like nothing I've ever heard. Well, at least let's compare it to a random clip from 2014 of me putting on a British accent. And let's see if you can hear any difference.
Sam and I are now going to touch the water at the beach.
And look, we got the seagull friends.
I'm sorry. It's still raining quite bad. Also, we decided to be Harry and Hermione and Ron
God,
Weasley
bloody
again.
hell, Ron.
Sorry.
You do it, talk.
I'm sorry, Harry. Oh God, forgot your name.
I'd hope you'd say, I've come a long way. That was really bad though. Like, I'm at the point in my British citizenship where that was painful to listen to. Horrifyingly, physically cringing. And I don't think it's just because it's me. It's because whatever that was so bad. I would
Yeah, oh man, do you get that all the time? I get that all the time when you see like an old video of yourself or an old photo of yourself or some kind of situation you think is embarrassing and you just cringe so hard.
love to at some point make a video with someone like an accent coach or something where they're better able to analyze how my accent has changed over time with a lot of experience. So if you know someone who'd want to do that, feel free to link us up. It would be interesting to find out just how all sorts of wrong my accent really is. Actually, on the topic of being wrong, I do make mistakes in these videos, by the way, like all the time. I'm sure you've noticed. I am a human at the end of the day. They do happen, and I'm always looking at them in the comments, and I try and heart the comments that point out little mistakes I've made and go, Shada. The fun thing about pronunciations is that because of the sheer number of regional pronunciations of words, you can have people arguing in my comment section that they've never heard a pronunciation I talk about, so therefore it must be wrong. Sometimes I am. Other times, I'm not. How you pronounce things can get really personal. Like the amount of comments I received from Brits that no one says lieutenant, wild. Then you have others saying, well, it's lieutenant, not lieutenant. And then you have some people from India saying, well, they say lieutenant in India too. So
this is the thing, like, you're not going to satisfy everybody. Like, there's just always going to be some person who takes issue with how you've said something or you did something. Like, you know, I get those comments all the time, like, you know, people complaining about this or that. It's just like, you know, what can you do?
It's kind of like the word mobile. I have people on both sides of the argument that both think I'm wrong for alternate reasons. And at that point, I just got to embrace it. I'm making videos, you publish them, and then there they are. And then when someone goes, hey, what about this? I can go, God damn. You see, when I make these types of videos, they're about pronunciations that I have heard regularly here that differ incredibly from any sort of American pronunciation that I'm used to. This is what I find really interesting. And as I live in London, most of these pronunciations will be standard BBC, London, or Southern English pronunciations. It is fascinating, though, that due to YouTube, TikTok, and probably just Hollywood, American media in general being so prolific, a lot of Brits, especially younger ones, are starting to take on certain American words and pronunciations, though that's probably a topic for a future video. But if comments on my last words video are anything to go by, a lot of Brits have adopted a more American pronunciation for a few words.
Yeah, and I think because of all the media we watch, like from America, all the Netflix and the Hollywood movies, for sure, like I hear kids randomly put on an American accent all the time now, all the time.
That's a bad thing. I feel like everyone's feeling like they have to protect the way that they say things to keep a culture, blah, blah, blah. I understand it, I really do. But for my personal use case, I like being a hodgepodge of everything. I like that my accent and my vocabulary tells a story of where I'm from. If your vocabulary and your accent tells the story of where you're from, and maybe you lived with an Australian for like 3 or 4 years and you picked up a few things, that's cool, man. Doesn't mean you have to like forcibly change the way you speak to go back to the way that your area speaks. Just be yourself, right? Wow, just be yourself, guys. Believe in yourself. And after all of this, now we're actually back to this word. Yeah, I told you to put a pin on it. Now I'm referring not to your phone, but as the spinning object you place above a baby's crib. This is my final question to you in this hodgepodge of a video that I hope you like. How do you pronounce this word when it refers to what is above a baby's crib?
Dude, I've never actually used it in this context before because I don't have kids, but I would call it a baby toy thing. I genuinely... yeah.
I've spoken to many Brits who say, what do you mean? There's no difference. Whereas where I'm from, we actually pronounce this mobile. Oh. And I know I'm not from Mobile, Alabama, which is how it's pronounced. I have been. Quite nice there. But if it is a spinning baby chandelier,
is it?
I would call that a mobile. And if you think,
mobile.
Oh my God, Evan, that sounds weird. Why would you say that? Before you jump into my comments about that, just imagine if you had one of these that spun automatically. Maybe you could call it an automobile? Mobile doesn't sound so weird now, does it? Huh? And maybe not, though. So yeah, my accent is all over the place.
Fun video. I thought it was the focused, like, because yeah, it sounded very English when he said focused, but then when he said more, yeah, like, we don't really use the R in more. Like, we do, but we don't. Whereas Americans, there's a much stronger emphasis, like more. But I suppose if you're Southern, you might say mo, like Mo Sislak from The Simpsons. But yeah, accents are so funny, aren't they? I love them. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.